Welcome into TuddyTalk. This is week 11. I'm Devin, and I'm back here in the podcast studio. Let's get started with it. So, last week we had the competition Bullseye. That was the closest team to their weekly projection, and that goes to my opponent last week, Eric. Congratulations. You nearly hit your projection by, that much. So, there's your $5 right there. This week, we have 100%. I want to see your team give 100% and score 100. So whoever gets the closest to 100 this week will get the $5. Unfortunately, last week, we did have kick and pray, but we no longer have kickers. So, that's how that goes. My bad. Sorry about that. Now, I want to get some things cleared up real quick. This is week 11. That means that our trade deadline is this week. Now, this is our first year on Sleeper, so remember, I'm not perfect. If there's something that we need to work out, we can work it out. But I believe that goes until Monday Night Football. The end of Monday Night Football is the trade deadline for week 11 for this year. So please, if you have any last-minute trades, get those in. We're going to go into power rankings this week just a little bit differently. I decided to go ahead and choose everybody's keepers that I believe that you are going to keep. Obviously, not going to be exact, but, that's where we're at, okay? So starting at the very bottom.
Number 12.
Number 12 is going to be Tommy. Tommy, you moved down a spot. We're going to go through your potential keepers right now. So I listed out Brandon Ayuk, Kyle Pitts, Zay Flowers, Devontae Smith, and Jonathan Taylor. Now, JT, he got hurt for 3 weeks, but he's bounced back. He is still in his prime, and he's only 25. That's an easy keeper for me. Devontae Smith, extremely solid, capable of 10 plus every week, but not quite that franchise player that we want. So for a keeper. Zay Flowers is up and down this year, but he's becoming the top pass catcher in Baltimore. I think that's a great keeper for next year. Kyle Pitts, he's pretty good, but he's on the Falcons. Yeah. We're waiting on that college production from Kyle Pitts, and I just haven't seen it that much. Brandon Ayuk is another option on this team, but he just had a torn ACL and MCL. We don't know if he's going to be back in San Francisco next year. So really, I don't know if I can pick him. So my final decision on what I believe you are going to pick, Jonathan Taylor as your franchise player, and your 3 lottos are Devontae Smith, Zay Flower, and Kyle Pitts. Moving on.
Number 11.
Number 11 is going to be Apple. And, well, he had a lot of players to choose from, okay? So Rachaad White, Xavier Worthy, Audric Estime, Michael Pittman, Chris Olave, Brian Thomas, Terry McLaurin, Najee Harris, Jaden Daniels even on this team. Nothing really stands out as a star, but you gotta pick some, okay? So let's start at the bottom, right? Rachaad White, mediocre, but the last 4 weeks have been really promising. You don't know if he's going to be the backup next year, or if he's going to lead the backfield, or if he's even going to be on the Buccaneers next year. So I don't know if you want to go that way, but you could. It's an option. Xavier Worthy, he has huge upside as a rookie, but yet to reach that potential. Even when Rice went down and Juju Smith-Schuster went down, all of these options went down to give Worthy a chance. But, the big winner was DeAndre Hopkins and Travis Kelce. So really, do you want to keep him? It's a big gamble for next year. Next, Audric Estime. That's a dark horse keeper option for you. Javonte Williams is kind of going downhill. Sean Payton seems to like Audric Estime. I don't know. It could be a new look Broncos offense next year. It could be the move for you. Moving to Michael Pittman. Big name, but has a bad habit of disappearing when the Colts play football. And that is not what you want from this keeper. Yeah, like I said, big name. He's only here because of his name. He's busted, and he's only 27. That's too bad. Next is Chris Olave, again on the short list. For the past 3 years, we've waited on his big breakout season, and we've yet to see it. We're still waiting. Come on, Chris. And now, well, he's injured. So do you really want to invest in him as a keeper? I'm not so sure. Brian Thomas Jr., young stud. He's a boom on the scene this year. And I mean, who knows if he's going to be okay for the rest of the year. Obviously, we know his talents, so we know that he is able to do this. But are you going to trust that it's going to be Trevor Lawrence next year in the Jacksonville Jaguars team? But the season's been fantastic, so, I mean, it's a good keeper. Terry McLaurin, just, I mean, hand in hand with Daniels, he goes in and just consistently produces. Since week 2, he's been 12 to 22 points a week, and that's exactly what you want in a keeper. That is a high-tier player, and we've been waiting for this. He just needed consistent quarterback play, and that's what he got in Jaden Daniels. Speaking of Daniels, he's looking like an RG3 type quarterback. So really, I mean, he's good in real life, yes, but in fantasy football, that is where you want him. That is he's invaluable, I would say. Moving to, let's see, Najee Harris. Now with Russell Wilson in that offense in Pittsburgh, he has looked fantastic. He's been getting 100 yards consistently every game. He's still young, but it depends on the quarterback for next year. That's where I landed at for the keeper status. Now, I'm going to go over the rules real quick for keepers. Obviously, we have a franchise player, so that is any player on your team. You get to keep him, no penalty. And then you have to pick 3 lotto players of different positions from your franchise players. So in this case, I could pick Terry McLaurin, but then you wouldn't be able to pick Brian Thomas or Chris Olave as your lotto. So thinking like that, I'm going with Najee Harris as your franchise keeper. And then I'm going Jaden Daniels, Terry McLaurin, and Brian Thomas Jr. as your 3 lottos, and you get to keep 2 of those 3 players. And I think that's pretty good, all things considered. As a really low tier team, it could be worse. That's what I'm saying. Moving to the next one.
Number 10.
Number 10 is going to be Brittany. And I mean, she has 7 players that I think could be useful in the next year. Jaden Reed, Devon Achane, Dave Montgomery, Amon-Ra, Deebo Samuel, Brian Robinson, and even Malik Neighbors, the rookie. So starting reverse order, Malik Neighbors, still riding high after his electric start to the year. The Giants just need help at QB. Daniels is not the answer, and we've seen that constantly. And now I'm pretty sure he's being benched. We got to see how he performs with other quarterbacks before I commit to keeping him for next year. Brian Robinson, he might be the surprise of the year. He has been fantastic every week except for when he was hurt. He is genuinely the unquestioned running back 1 in Washington, and he's been excellent in that role. I expect him to continue it next year. He's really young. I mean, this is only his 2nd year. And that team just looks, they want to build for the future, and Brian Robinson will be part of that future. Deebo Samuel, he's wide receiver 33 on the year right now. It's not looking really good. Obviously, there's potential without Ayuk, but he hasn't really shown that as much, even this year when Ayuk was out. So how much do you really trust him? Yeah, I just want to see more from him before I can commit to him being a keeper. Amon-Ra, on the other hand, top 10 wide receiver on the year in the league, on one of the top offenses. I mean, this is a no-brainer pick for your keeper. It's just, do you want to franchise him or do you want to lotto him? That's your biggest question right there. David Montgomery, a lot of questions going into the year. Was it going to be a consistent the same thing as last year? Were they going to carry it over from last year, giving 50-50, Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery? And the answer is yes. He has been fantastic, highly effective in Detroit. We just have to see if he stays in Detroit, really, if you want to keep him. Devon Achane was injured for a little while, but still has that home run ability. He can still do it, but he either scores over 20 or below 10, and it's hard to rely on for a stud that you want on your team. Now, Jaden Reed, last year was a breakout campaign. This year has been inconsistent, just all over the place. He's fun to watch, but he's not as fun to root for when you have him on your fantasy team. So, yeah, all of this being said, I think the obvious way I'm going to go with this is Amon-Ra St. Brown as your franchise player. Your 3 lottos are Brian Robinson, David Montgomery, Devon Achant, and you get to keep 2 of those guys. I think that's a good, solid start for your next year, and yeah, we'll see how the rest of the year goes for you. Moving on.
Number 9.
Number 9 is going to be Scott. Now, he has 6 players, so I mean everybody's going to be a little bit different. I found 6 players that are potential keepers. This could all change in the next few weeks. Bucky Irving, Travis Kelce, Jameson Williams, Tank Dell, Drake London, and Tank Bigsby. 2 tanks on there. So again, moving the opposite way. Tank Bigsby, he's shown flashes this year as a serious runner. But I mean, ETN is still there. He hasn't completely overtaken him yet. But that's what you want to see. If you want to keep somebody, you want them to be unquestioned going into the next year. You want them to be the star player on their team, and Tank has yet to break that so far. Drake London, on the other side, has had a breakout season this year. If Kirk stays around leading this offense, I truly believe that Drake London's a great keeper, and I would completely expect this year to continue next year if, like I said, Kirk sticks around. Penix might be good, but I like Kirk right now. Tank Dell, I mean, last year it was fantastic. This year has kind of been a regression. Obviously, Nico has been out, and that's when Tank Dell did really well. But Nico's back, and I don't know how much you want to see. Or I know how much you want to see from Tank Dell, but I don't know if you're going to see that as a keeper, and that's hard. Jameson Williams is a dark horse potential keeper. He lights it up. When he's on the field and not suspended for gambling or PEDs or anything like that. I mean, the Lions are a high-flying team, and Williams is a special talent. So he just has to stay clean. But depending on how he performs the rest of the year, this could be one of your guys. So we'll see. Travis Kelce is finally producing like you expected him to at the beginning of the year. But why? Why wasn't he performing at the beginning of the year? That's what you have to question when you're trying to find a keeper for next year. And I believe that they were trying to phase him out little by little. I think that, I mean, he's getting older, obviously. He's slowing down a little bit. And you don't want to rely on him every single week if you're the Kansas City Chiefs. So, do you want to keep him while he is regressing every year and they're going to get better next year with their wide receivers, hopefully? I don't know. But, I mean, he's performing right now, so you can't really complain. Bucky Irving, the last one on this list. As a rookie, he came in and made a name for himself on this offense. Kind of overtook Rachaad White, I would say. I mean, not quite, but he might be that guy in Tampa Bay. So Bucky Irving might be another really sneaky pick. So moving to your franchise player and my predictions, I am going with Drake London out of these guys. So since he's the wide receiver, I got to pick other players. Tank Bigsby, Travis Kelce, and Bucky Irving will be my prediction for you, Scott. Yeah, I like the team. Moving on.
Number 8.
Number 8 is going to be Paris. Now, you have some interesting picks, I would say, such as Lamar Jackson. Brock Bowers is on here. George Pickens is one that I didn't see coming. Tyreek Hill, James Cook, Ramondre Stevenson, Isaiah Pacheco. Let's go through real quick. So Lamar Jackson, he is well on his way to another MVP season. Obviously, having Henry there has helped tremendously. But really, when you look at it, do you keep a quarterback going into next year? That's something to decide on your own. I can't really tell you how to go that way. Tyreek Hill, he was going for 2,000 yards last year. This year, he is praying that he can make it to 1,000. He's not even at 500 yet, and we're in week 11 now. It's tough to watch. Even with Tua back, he hasn't really been giving you enough, and that's what we want from him. So I don't know if he's fallen out of grace. George Pickens, though, has kind of been the opposite. Since Russell Wilson came in, that afterthought has now turned into the forefront, and now you are seeing George Pickens get the targets. And I mean, if Russ stays around in Pittsburgh, he could be a sneaky good keeper next year. Looking at Brock Bowers, garbage team, but excellent talent. He has been the main target, and he continues to show it every single week. He could be a star for years, and that's exactly what you want in a keeper. Isaiah Pacheco, another really young guy that could be a star for years. Obviously, he was injured, so we need to see if he can bounce back. Hunt, I don't think is going to be there next year, and Pacheco's going to be healthy. I think that's a really good keeper for you. But two other running backs that you have that are super good, starting with Ramondre Stevenson. He's been solid all year, but he's forgotten sometimes. In about a third of the games that the Patriots play, Ramondre Stevenson kind of just takes a back seat. I do like May. He's been looking okay, and that will help Stevenson. So he could be a good way to look for your next year. James Cook, your last one on here. He really came into his own this year. Many expected it, and I think that he'll be a mainstay in Buffalo's system. So how do you work around this one franchise player, three lotto players situation that we have here? Obviously, we would love to keep James Cook, but then that leaves Ramondre and Isaiah Pacheco kind of on the back burner, and you can't keep them. They go into the draft. You never see them again. So how do you work around that? You keep probably, one of your best players. I was hopping back and forth between Lamar and Brock Bowers, but I am going with Brock Bowers here. Brock Bowers is your franchise player, Isaiah Pacheco, Ramondre Stevenson, and James Cook. That way, two of the three, they're fantastic running backs, and you can't go wrong there. So those are my predictions for number 8, Paris. Moving on.
Number 7.
Number 7, I have Nate. And Nate, let's look at your team here. So starting at the top, Jalen Hurts is going to be, week in and week out, fantastic guy. Above 25 since the bye week. Every single week has been above 25. It could be an easy keeper to me. He's special, that's for sure. Jahmyr Gibbs, he is RB5 on the year. Even with David Montgomery taking touches, he is special. He is someone that you want. He is someone that you need on a team in order to lift yourself to the next level. Josh Jacobs, as much as I oppose him, I have to admit he's been okay this year. Now, does that last into next year? How long will it last? That's a question that you have to look inwards and see if that remains in the conversation for you. I genuinely don't know if Josh Jacobs is that guy. I'm not a huge fan, obviously, but that's how it goes. Keon Coleman is an interesting name to be on a keeper list. But, you can't go wrong with the Bills pass catcher, right? They're all hard to trust, but Keon, he's going to be there. And he's going to be involved. It's just a question of how much. So, that one's tough. Last one on this list, Davante Adams. He's been underwhelming. That's an understatement, really. He's been pretty bad. Even in his return to his papa, he has not been what Jets fans have wanted. So, where do you go with this team? Do you... man. I think you have to keep Jahmyr Gibbs. That's your number one guy, franchise player. And then since you can't keep Josh Jacobs, if you keep Jahmyr Gibbs, it goes to the other three, Jalen Hurts, Keon Coleman, and Davante Adams. I think those are your best bets for your keeper next year, Nate. Yeah, that's all I have to say. So moving on to number 6. Oh, excuse me.
Number 6.
Number 6 is going to be me. I've dropped down quite a bit. And I knew this was coming. I think we all knew this was coming. Obviously, I wasn't a great 7-0 team or whatever it was. And yeah, it's about time that I moved down here. I just need to get healthy again. That's all. Starting down here at tight end, actually. Trey McBride. When he actually gets targets, he's so good. I just personally don't know if I can keep a tight end. I think he's tight end 3 this year, so it's a great investment if I really want that. That's to be seen, really. Tony Pollard, the pizza man himself. I've been super pleasantly surprised with his output, but I don't know if it's been enough to keep him. I don't really trust the Titans. I don't really like Will Levis. I don't know if I can trust it. Tony Pollard he doesn't blow the doors off the place. He gets like 13 to 17 a week, and that's really good. It's solid, but is it a keeper? I don't know. Rico Dowdle, the Cowboys have been a mess, and they're just continuing to spiral. If he was on a better team, this would be a harder decision. I like Rico Dowdle. I think he's good. He has talent, but like I said, on the Cowboys, they're falling apart, and I just can't trust him. T. Higgins, I can't say much because he's been hurt. So how much can I really extrapolate from that? I can say it's been hard without him, and I would love to see him play some games. We'll see post playoffs, really, if I continue to keep him. Rashee Rice. Now, this was interesting because at the beginning of the year, if you asked me this, he would be an obvious no-brainer. Obviously, I have to keep Rashee Rice for next year. But he's not healthy, and he is likely suspended next year. I don't know if he's going to return to form at all. So, I don't know if I can keep him. Puka Nacua. It's hard to evaluate when he's been injured most of the year. Then he comes back. He does pretty well on a Thursday night game. Then the next week goes out within like 5-10 minutes or whatever it was because he punched somebody. Not a great look. Last week he got, over 10, so that's pretty good. Hopefully he can go on a run though and make me want to keep him because, if he's this inconsistent all year, I don't know if I can keep him. Nico Collins has been, that guy when he returns. When he plays, excuse me. Last week, I was hopeful that he would play, but he kind of screwed me over, made me have to start Jonnu Smith, so that wasn't cool of him. I'll probably hold that against him the whole time. We'll have to see how he returns, because he's been gone since, week 5? Or week 4? Something like that? Week 6? I don't know. Early. He's been gone for like 5 weeks. Is he still the guy that was dominating? We'll have to see. Now, the final player, my first round pick, Breece Hall. He's still running back 11 somehow in this league, and I don't see it. It's insane because he has been such a struggle to watch. Offensively, the Jets are inept, and Breece hasn't been there to help out much, so we'll see. Overall, I probably have to keep him and just hope for the best. So that's where we're at. My franchise will probably be, at this time, Breece Hall as my one keeper, and then that takes away Pollard and Rico. So going to wide receiver, Nico Collins and Puka. Those are the two guys, and then either it comes down to T. Higgins or Trey McBride. Right now, I'm leaning Trey McBride. I don't know where T's going to be next year, and we'll see how he performs. That's all. So yeah, those three: Nico, Puka, and Trey McBride for me. Moving on.
Number 5.
Number 5 is going to be Chris, and he has such a good team overall. He has built a fantastic team here. I'm going to start out with James Conner. He's still under 30, and he's proven that the Arizona Cardinals offense runs directly through him. Trey Benson might be coming in and taking a little bit or a few snaps away, but I still believe in James Conner. He's been fantastic. When he isn't there, the offense takes a step back, and it's very noticeable. CeeDee Lamb is the focal point for Dallas, but like I said with Rico Dowdle, they're kind of ass right now, and I don't know how much you trust Dallas. Is Dak Prescott going to be good next year, or is he going to be mediocre again? It's really hard to see going forward. And obviously Rush and Lance aren't going to do much for his value this year. Jackson Smith and Jigba. JSN has, he has it. He has it in him to be a star, but can he do it when DK is back? DK has been gone for a couple weeks now. I don't know if he can turn it into his star potential into full-fledged stardom. I don't know if you can keep him. Sam Laporta, after last year, we wanted a lot more, and we were all hoping that he would give you some more. Unfortunately, there are too many mouths to feed in Detroit, and he has kind of taken a step back. He's fallen back to the depths of the Detroit Lions offense, and it's been noticeable. Sam Laporta went from number 1 overall tight end to wherever he is. I think he's tight end 10 right now, and that's brutal. Cooper Kupp, I mean, he still has it, but he does get injured often. I genuinely didn't know he was 31 already, so that's kind of crazy. How has he been in the league this long? That's ridiculous. So yeah, Cooper Kupp's another option. Calvin Ridley, I mean, you get rid of Hopkins and you give Ridley all of the targets. That's exactly how you get Ridley his fantasy value. You have to give him so many targets. And I mean, he's getting older too. He's starting to get up there. And Levis is still there. Like I mentioned with Tony Pollard, it's hard to trust the Tennessee offense when Will Levis is there. He has flashes, but he's just not it, you know? And then you're obvious. Bijan Robinson. Come on, do we have to pretend? If Bijan hits the draft, if he goes into the draft pool, I have to start questioning every decision that Chris makes from here on out, fantasy or otherwise. Bijan Robinson is your franchise player. And then I'm going to go Calvin Ridley, Cooper Kupp, and CD Lamb as your 3 lotto picks. And that's a great way to start next season with those 3 guys, or 3 of those 4 guys, I guess. Yeah, I like what I'm seeing there. Moving on. Number 4, we are going to have Eric. And Eric, we're going to start with a quarterback for you too. Joe Burrow. He has been phenomenal this season, but it isn't bringing real-life wins. You have to wonder, is that going to cause the Bengals staff concern? Are they going to have pause? Are they going to change it up next year to where they're going to run it more? Or they're just not going to give him these big passes? Is he worth a keeper if they don't win? You know, it's a question you have to ask. Obviously, I think that's a lame duck situation, but do you keep? I don't know. Derrick Henry, I mean, old, I hardly know her. Henry's prime never ended. He just wasn't in the right situation. The rest of this year will really determine if you want to keep him or not. He's been just fantastic week in, week out. Kenneth Walker, another fantastic running back. He's a workhorse in a decent enough offense, and I mean, he gets touches, he turns them into points, and that's exactly what you want from a fantasy running back. He does catch passes, and that's perfect. It's just a question of the Seahawks offense. Are they going to be decent next year? I don't know. Are they going to get rid of Geno? I mean, looking at how they've been playing, it's a likelihood, actually. Justin Jefferson, we're going to move to him. He has shown that it doesn't matter who he has as quarterback, he will get it done. Again, like Bijan Robinson, I think Justin Jefferson is a no-brainer. If you don't keep him overall, it's just kind of dumb. Let's just say that. George Kittle is another guy that I'm throwing in here. I will take a huge L for predicting him to be a bust this year. I thought the fall off was inevitable, but I mean, he's the tight end 1 on the season. What can I say? He's a tight end still, so is he worth a keeper? I don't know. It's just a gamble that you're going to have to take, Eric. So we'll see. Nick Chubb, it's really hard not to get down about his performance this year. Obviously, he's coming back from this gnarly injury. He wrecked his leg. I don't know if it's that holding him back or if it's the fact that the Browns are just complete garbage. Yeah, if you keep him, I have to call that complete blind hope. Unless he turns something around this year, and I mean, we've yet to see that. DJ Moore, I mean, he's your guy. He's in a crapshoot offense. You never know where the ball's going to go, and if Caleb Williams will even get the ball to his receivers. So, do you take a chance on that? Personally, I don't, and especially with your franchise player, I think you're going Justin Jefferson, so you can't even go with DJ Moore as a lotto. So, let's just get rid of him. And then we're going to go lotto players: Derrick Henry, Ken Walker, and George Kittle. I think those three are a solid group. Even if you don't get Derrick Henry, you still get Ken Walker and George Kittle, and I think they're going to be fantastic next year anyway. So I think you can't go wrong with those. Moving on up, another one.
Number 3.
Number 3 is going to be Matt Gifford. Now, he has 6 players too that we're going to go through one by one. Joe Mixon is going to be right there at the top. I mean, it's been crazy. This has been a fantastic turnaround for his career. Yes, he's been good, but in Houston, he's been, top tier. Excellent. Amazing. If he stays in Houston, it might be worth a look. I don't know. He has only scored under 10 this year when he got injured in, I think that was week 2. I can't tell you for sure because I'm not looking at it, so whatever. Garrett Wilson, he's had a nice stretch, but thinking about next year, I don't think he's QB proof. And if Rodgers is gone, even if Rodgers is there, I think he's on such a sharp decline, it doesn't matter. He might be overvalued. And I think that's where we're at with Garrett Wilson. Mark Andrews, the wait was long, but it's paying off right now. And he has been pumping out fantastic performances every week. He's not quite 30, so he could be a pretty good keeper if he stays on Baltimore. I don't know what they did, but they flipped a switch and he's been fantastic this past few weeks. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, if he can reach his previous form, it could be the obvious pick, right? You go with Christian McCaffrey and then you're good. If he injures himself again, it's a big question. If he gets a minor injury for the rest of the year and he only plays like 3 games this year, are you going to go into next year confident that this is your guy? You want him for the next year at least. And man, that's a tough battle to go for. DeAndre Swift has been a good surprise for the fantasy season, but overall, I don't think he's worth your franchise spot. He might be a lotto guy. Marvin Harrison at the bottom down here. Keep an eye on him after the bye. I still believe on him. But that could be blind faith. I obviously I have Kyler Murray and I really want Marvin to do well. I want you to do well. But that's tough. So for me, your franchise guy, because again, the lotto situation, you can't pick the same position. So we're going to go Marvin Harrison as your franchise guy. If he pops off the rest of the way this year, it could be really easy to see him going into next year as your guy. That means that your lotto picks are going to be DeAndre Swift, CMC, Joe Mixon. Now you could switch out DeAndre Swift and Mark Andrews, however you want to do it, but I think those 3 give you the best chance of getting just solid players going into 2025, and that's what you need when you have a 12-team league. So yeah, Marvin Harrison, a little bit different. That does, I don't know. Number 2, I put Sammy. And yet another quarterback starting off this list. Josh Allen, I just hope he gets playoff success this year. I don't think he's going to be a keeper. I just threw him in here because I think he's a good quarterback and he's fun to watch, I hope he does well. Kyron Williams has been lights out. And at the beginning of the year, I said Blake Corum might come in. He might be a little bit of a problem. And we can see that has been put to rest and it's just proven to be bullshit. He's a strong contender for your guy. An even stronger contender for your guy is Jamar Chase. Now, at the beginning of the year, I don't know if who all remembers this, but he was holding out for a contract and then he ended up playing. And he slipped a little bit in the draft and you took advantage of that. It was a gamble and it paid off. He's been electric. And we knew that he could be, but this has been another level. Last week alone was just insane. Chuba Hubbard. Even a broken franchise is right every once in a while. Chuba was just given a ton of money, and he's still super young. He's been excellent this year. He could be worth a look as one of your lotto guys. I could definitely see that. Mike Evans, he's been the same player for years now. I think he's going to be the same player in the coming years. But that player is either 25 or 5. I don't know if he is worth an investment. I hope that he can get to 1,000 yards again this year outside of fantasy, but I just don't think he will. He's been hurt for too long, and I don't think that Baker's going to hyper-focus on him so that he can get it. Yeah, there is where I'm at with Mike Evans. Also, if Jamar Chase is your franchise guy, I can't really take him. J.K. Dobbins is your last player on my list. He's a solid running back, too, that has held up. His health has been fantastic, getting 15-plus touches a game. I mean, I'm surprised. I don't know if you are, but in his Baltimore days, I couldn't see that happening. Harbaugh seems to like him, and he could return next year. I think J.K. Dobbins is worth a look, for sure. Now, all that being said, your franchise guy, Jamar Chase. Your 3 lottos, Kyron Williams, Chuba Hubbard, and J.K. Dobbins. And honestly, I think you're hoping for Kyron and Chuba? I mean, I would be, but that's just me. Moving on to the last one. Number one. Tatani. Welcome back to number 1. Let's start with Aaron Jones. Bum. Should retire. Doesn't matter. Alvin Kamara. Potentially the steal of the draft. He hasn't slowed down this much at all this year, and there's really no reason to doubt next year unless something big happens. But something big already happened. They just fired their coach, and he's still just fine. So it's so hard to choose between him or this next guy, Saquon Barkley. I mean, it's exactly what he needed to get out of New York and go to Philadelphia. He's so fun to watch. It's been really cool to see the transition, and I mean, he's a fantastic player, and I think that's an easy start or an easy keep. AJ Brown, when he plays, he is worth the investment. You just have to hope he plays. And I mean, I don't think that's been a problem in the past, but this year it has been a little bit. Darnell Mooney, I'm not putting him on the same level as AJ Brown, obviously, but he has been a huge surprise this year. If Kirk keeps him involved, he could be worth a look for one of your keepers. DK Metcalf, how much do you trust the Seahawks offense? He can break off a 75-yard touchdown anytime, but watching him play is so frustrating. He has such a bad temper, and it's just, as a Seahawks fan, I don't know if you can trust him. I just get worried every single week, and I would if he was on my team too. All of this being said, I bounced around between Alvin Kamara and Saquon Barkley as your franchise guy. Eventually, I have to go with Saquon. I just like him a little more. I don't know what it is. That means Alvin Kamara is going to hit the draft, and that will be very nice for, one of the bottom 4 teams, whoever gets the number 1 pick. That means that your lotto picks are going to be AJ Brown, Darnell Mooney, DK Metcalf. You can't get much more solid than that. Your other situation would be keeping AJ Brown and then throwing Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Alvin Kamara into your lottery, but that runs the risk of you not getting, 2 of the guys. How risky do you want to be, really? That's all I have to say about the power rankings, so let's move on. Moving on to my predictions. Obviously, I didn't get last week's. My bad. I'll come back again next week and get this week's. Starting at me versus Brittany, I think I'm going to get back into the winning column with this one. Brittany has been on a skid, and if I lose to her at this point, I don't know what I'll do. Hopefully Nico is actually back and he isn't just teasing it this time. I need the help, and I'll take what I can get, really. Moving on, Matt Apple versus Chris. Apple has been just straight garbage, and Chris has been on the upswing. He is 5-5 right now. I think that he continues to roll 6-5. Scott versus Paris. This one, I bounced back and forth a little bit, but after looking over every player, I still have to give Paris this one. Man, I hope Tyreek can actually break out. It's been too long since we've seen Tyreek do something. Moving to Eric versus Tommy, and same thing as Chris versus Apple. Tommy has just been straight garbage. He scored 60 last week, and that's not what you want. And then obviously Eric won, and he's going to continue to win. I think he gets the W here. Gifford versus Nate. I wanted to give Nate a chance this week, but what was it? There was some reason, I don't know, but looking at it, I think that Gifford's team has just shown up, and I think they're going to continue rolling now that CMC's back, and they've found a little bit of a rhythm, and it's going to continue. So I see Matt Gifford winning that one. Now, Tatani versus Sammy, this one could be really close and actually a really good game. I'm looking forward to see who pulls this one off. Looking at it, I am going to, selfishly, I can't really pick either one because you guys are both ahead of me in the standings. I'm going to go with Tatani, though. I think that he still has a solid team. He's still scoring over 115, 120 every week. Sammy is still up and down, yet she wins. So, yeah, I'm going with Tatani. Good luck. That is all I have for TuddyTalk Week 11. Thank you, everybody, for coming in and joining me. If you want to see more from us, go back to YouTube or Spotify. We're on either one. And I will see you next week. Remember the trade deadline is this week. So please get your trades in. Be done with that. And I'll see everybody at Friendsgiving. Goodbye.